Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Studying Law Around the World, where we interview lawyers and students from different countries and different jurisdictions to get you learn about their law school experience and the differences of studying law in different parts of the world. Today, I'll have the honor to have Harpreet Singh Hora, who will be sharing with us a little bit about his experience both in India and in Canada. To get started, I'll read a little bit of his bio. So, Harpreet Singh Hora is a practicing lawyer in the Supreme Court of India and high courts of different provinces in India for the last 6 years. He has worked with Senior Standing Counsel of Government of India, and he has been impaneled lawyer for DSGMC, the statutory body under federal legislation, and also a Legal Aid Counsel for Magistrate Courts on the criminal panel. Apart from his private practice in the field of criminal law, family law, and service law, he has represented victims of genocide-related crimes, contested student rights cases, constitutional rights of religious minorities, and prison reforms before the Supreme Court of India and other higher courts. He has also handled cross-border drugs recovery cases, aircraft hijack criminal case, homicide, and juvenile crime cases. He holds a double degree, one in software engineering and the second one in law, and he's an NCA qualified candidate who is currently enrolled for his licensing process with the Law Society of Ontario. So thank you so much, Harpreet, for your willingness to join us today. Welcome to the podcast. And to jump right
Thank you
into the
so much.
questions.
Thank you so much. Thanks to you for this good opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, to jump right into the questions, I thought you start with a question that we have as a standard, right? So we ask everybody from different countries that. And first of all, how long is law school in India, and is it an undergrad program?
So, law school in India, so there has been a shift in the setup of how law school curriculum and how the law courses are designed in India. Previously, it used to be a 3 year law course, which one is eligible to enroll in only after his or her graduation. So, if you are a graduate in, let's say, 3 year BA degree, you have 4 years of BTech, only then you would be able to enroll in a law school course which would span over for 3 years. That was the old system that we had in India. And what has happened in India, we have these national law universities, NLUs, coming up in each province. So there are around 15 or 18 NLUs. The numbers could be varying now. Now, what is happening is now India has also come up with a system of 5 year law school course. So what happens is after your class 10, you would do your class 11 and class 12. After class 12, you may either choose to do a graduation in a non-law course and then get enrolled in a 3 year law course, or you may directly after class 12 directly go into a 5 year law course. So the law courses are in India are in two manners. One is a 3 year law school, which is after graduation, or one is a 5 year law school, which is after class 12. As far as whether it's considered an undergrad degree or not, so different universities have their different systems of marking. If a student chooses a 5 year law school, then it also is called as an integrated degree. For example, you can choose for a BA LLB after class 12, which would be a 5 year course. You can go for a BCom LLB. It would be called as an it would be called as an integrated graduate course if you go for a 5 year law course. If you choose to go for a 3 year law school, then you could be called as a double graduate because you have pursued your graduation for 3 years or 4 years after class 12, and then you have done the 3 year law school course. As far as, for example, for the second category, you can take my example as well. After class 12, I pursued my Bachelor's of Technology in Computer Sciences and Engineering for 4 years. So that was a graduate degree. After that BTech degree of 4 years, I enrolled in a law school for 3 years. So that's another bachelor's degree, bachelor's in law. So I'm a double graduate. So this is how the law school, the course is designed in India, that we have two different ways by which we can pursue law.
Fantastic. That's awesome, and a little different from what I've heard in previous interviews. So that makes this extra interesting. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, thanks for adding that for sure. Well, going forward, let me ask you, are most of the courses in law school mandatory, or do you also have electives you can choose to take when you are studying in law school in India?
So what happens is, in the initial couple of semesters, whether it's a 5-year course or it's a 3-year course, this goes for both of them. In the initial couple of years, you have certain mandatory subjects. For example, criminal law one, family law one, jurisprudence. For example, foundations that we have in certain countries, jurisprudence. The constitutional law, constitution. We had it divided in two different subjects: constitutional law one and constitutional law two. Then there are other subjects, for example, intellectual property rights part one, labor law part one. These are mandatory subjects. These subjects give you a fair idea or a brief overview of the subject. For example, in criminal law one, we had the penal code. Mainly the subject comprises of the penal code, the intention, the actus reus, the mens rea. After those, like for example, in my case, after 4 semesters, it was a 6 semester course. So after the second year, after 4 semesters, for the last 2 semesters, we had the option to choose electives. Now, this is wherein your personal interest comes into play. If you want to go into the finance or the corporate sector or the banking sector, you have mercantile law, you had banking law, you had the financial instruments law. Somebody wants to go into field related to media, so we had the media regulation law as well. Those are the elective subjects. If you want to go into the jurisprudence of the criminal law, you had a detailed subject relating to criminology in that case. So, for example, I had chosen intellectual property right two. That was my elective because I had already studied IPR one, and then I chose to study IPR two. And to be very honest, I chose that subject. The other reason for choosing that subject, apart from my interest, was it was a high scoring subject. Apart from that, your interest comes into play, as I said. So I had also chosen a subject relating to trial advocacy and moot courts. There was a reason for that because I also wanted a practical experience. It helped you develop because it had practical components. So it helped me develop my confidence, my speaking skills. Also because I was an executive member of the Moot Court Society in my college. So it had somehow been overlapping with what I have been practically doing. So I'd get to read theories related to it. And trial as advocacy was something I chose because it again it gives you how the cross exams happen inside the court, how the examination in chief would happen, what are the kind of questions that you can ask or you cannot ask. So it gives you practical exposure to the things that would be happening inside the courts. So the subjects there are like a lot of subjects which are a mandatory course, but then it depends on your personal interest, your choice that you can choose real estate law, family law to labor law to employment law. So different fields of law which a student could take up as an elective subject.
Fantastic. Wow, that makes sense, and that's incredible. Glad to hear about the possibility of specializing still while you are in your like first part of your studies. This is mostly a bit different of the general experience of a Brazilian law school, but several universities, especially bigger universities, federal ones, or big private universities, will offer some elective courses. But it's I would say that there's a lot less options from what I've been able to gather. Well, that's very interesting, very nice to hear. And then I also mentioned before that you had the chance to practice before the Supreme Court, so several very interesting cases. That's amazing. Does India also have a bar exam system? So once you graduate law school, do you also need to take a bar exam, or do you graduate and you automatically become a lawyer?
So what happens in India after you pass your law school? So there is what we call as licensing here. It is called as enrollment. In India, it's called as an enrollment. The life it's just a different term for the licensing. So after you pass your law school, with your provisional certificates and your mark sheet of the final exams, you become eligible to get enrolled. It gives you a provisional enrollment number. So as we have law societies here in Canada, what it is called in India is a bar council. So the provincial bar council, there's a Federal Bar Council, the Bar Council of India, which designs the curriculum, is generally the regulating body. But your licensing, that is your enrollment, is the job of the provincial bar councils. For example, I am registered with the bar council of my province. But the good thing about India, and this is something which I feel bad about since I'm in Canada now. The good thing about the Indian bar council system is I am registered with the bar council of my state, my province. I'm enrolled with them. But then you have to write an exam called as AIBE, All India Bar Examination. It's an open book exam, not a big deal. You have studied for 3 years, you know what it is about. And AIB, the exams are pretty fairly, I'd say, a crackable exam. So that's not much of a problem. After passing your AIBE exam, there are people, even I have been practicing in different provincial high courts. So my licensing is only with one province. I need not get licensed in the other provinces as well. Just that as a matter of propriety, or there are some local bar associations which have their own rules. Whenever I go to a different province, I generally engage a local counsel along with me, because on your attorney documents you need to have a local counsel along with you who is licensed in that province. But there is no prohibition, no bar that I cannot go out of my province and I cannot practice. For example, I am registered with the Bar Council of Delhi, the state of Delhi. I have argued cases in Nainital High Court, that's a different province. I have argued cases in Allahabad High Court. I have argued cases in the Bombay High Court, that's a different province altogether. I have argued cases in the Meghalaya High Court. So, by the virtue of just by registering with one province is not a bar or is not a prohibition that you cannot argue cases beyond that province, which is a good thing, I feel, because I can practice law there. It's the same constitution, it's the same federal legislation. All that you need to know, the little extra hard work is sometimes the provincial legislations are involved, which you sometimes need to read. That's the extra work. But it makes it more interesting. It gives you a, how should I put it? It gives, as a player in litigation, it gives me a wider ground to play. Plus, it's a great experience. For example, the kind of lawyers you would have in the province of Delhi are different kind of litigators with what we have in Bombay. The kind of lawyers you would have in the state of Allahabad, the state of Uttar Pradesh in the Allahabad High Court are a different kind of litigation practice than what we have in Meghalaya. So it gives you like variety of experiences. So this I feel is a very positive thing about practicing in different provinces in India.
That's incredible. And now that you start mentioning Canada, also, I think we could move along on talking about a little bit of your experience then in Canada. And I read it quickly in your bio that that you're in the process of being licensed in the Law Society of Ontario, right? Would you be able to tell us a little more about your experience in Canada? Maybe a little bit about how you decided to become a licensed lawyer in Canada, and then after we can speak about the process. But let's just start a little bit sharing some of your personal experience, if you don't mind.
So as far as coming to Canada is concerned, I'd say with due apologies, I do not have a perfect answer for this. Coming to Canada has been something that is influenced by my friends, something that is influenced by the research I have done on the internet. Some part of it is also influenced by senior lawyers that I have seen arguing in the Supreme Court. They are registered, they are either barristers in England, in Canada, or in different countries, and they have, I'd say, these chaps have amazing experiences of life. So this is something I have always felt that when you go beyond your own home country's jurisdiction, it gives you a very different and unique kind of perspective. So this was my first reason to move beyond my home country's jurisdiction. The second question that came into my mind was then, if I cross the borders of my country's jurisdiction, then which country? It could be because lawyers from India go and practice in Singapore, they go and practice in Dubai. I would not say practice as in courtroom practice, but they have their practice in Dubai. They have their practice in US. They have their practice in England. There are a lot of Indian lawyers in England. And now that there's an influx of a huge influx of Indian lawyers in Canada as well. So there are different countries that I was contemplating to come to. So the second part of this, that apart from the law background, was also the route for immigration that I had to take. So the reason for choosing Canada, so my first two preferences were either England or Canada. England, as I had some financial commitments towards my family. So there was this financial aspect also came into play in this. Apart from that, the immigration route which Canada offers to federal skilled workers was something that I feel would be more favorable and more convenient as per my personal circumstances. So there's this. The first step was to move beyond your home country's jurisdiction to get a new perspective. You talk to new people, you talk to new lawyers, you see how the practice in a different country is. The second question was which country. So obviously any common law country. Then that also coupled with the fact that the immigration route in Canada by the federal skilled workers is something which has attracted me towards Canada. The third reason is again this comes personally to me. People from my province. So there's a common joke in my country that people from my province in every second household you would find somebody in Canada. So you would see the demographics of my home country. You find people in US, you find people in the Middle East, you find people in England, you would find people in Singapore, you'd find everybody from every country is everywhere. But there are like every second household in my province, somebody or somebody from somebody who knows is in Canada. So there was this community connect also, which impressed upon my family that yes, we know there's this country called Canada. We know a lot of people from our province who are in Canada. So Canada, that's why also became a choice for immigration. Apart from that, what I have always felt is that when you go outside your province or outside your home country, and this is what I also, I am a young lawyer, I'll also advise to other young lawyers who would be listening to this, that the more number of courts that you can argue your matters in, the better it would be. You would see the payoff that it would develop you into a different personality altogether. You go beyond your jurisdictions, go beyond your home turfs. You would meet new players. You would, if I can put it in my litigation language, you would meet the new giants of litigation. And the more teams, it's pretty simple. The more teams you would play against, the better player you would. It goes not only for sports, it goes for life as well. So these were the these were the reasons that I chose to come to Canada.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's incredible. Especially hearing that there's so many people choosing Canada. That's very interesting. Well,
Absolutely.
moving forward with the question now about specifically the legal profession, being a foreign trained attorney, can you tell us a little bit about this process of becoming licensed? Especially,
Yes.
I
So
guess specifically
in
to the province, right?
I'm sorry. Yes, the licensing process in Ontario, right? So
Exactly.
if
Yeah,
you're a
that would
foreign
be great.
trained counsel, so you have two routes by which you can complete the equivalence of degrees. The first one is either you go for a master's in Canada. The second one is you go through the NCA examination route. So the Federal Law Society, Federation of Law Societies of Canada, which is known as the FLSC, conducts the NCA examination. So you can send your degrees, your transcripts, and a process called as assessment would be carried out by the NCA or the FLSC. After the assessment, you would be allotted XYZ number of subjects. You have to write the examination for those subjects. Or either way, you can pursue a master's degree in Canada, and those NCA requirements would be met, uh, all of it or some of it. After the NCA requirements are met, like if you have completed your exams or if you have pursued your master's degree, after that, you get a certificate of qualification, which is known as CQ. After you get a CQ, you get enrolled with the lawyer licensing process, in the lawyer licensing process with the Law Society of Ontario. That's the stage that I am currently at. So you have the equivalence of the law degree. Now you are known as a licensing candidate with the Law Society of Ontario. That's a provincial process. It's not a federal process. So you can choose to get enrolled as a licensing candidate with a particular province. It could be British Columbia, could be Alberta, could be Ontario. So in the lawyer licensing process, there are two components. One is the examination. You have to write the barrister's exam and the solicitor's exam. Those are mandatory. There is no equivalent of that. There is no alternate to it. The second component is experiential training program, which has a couple of options which you can choose. The first one is you apply to law firms or with the lawyers and you do a 10 months articling, which is a practical component. The second option is one can pursue a program known as LPP, which is abbreviated as Law Practice Program. So it has a 4 months of in-class training program and 4 months of practical component. Apart from that, if you are an experienced lawyer, then you have two more options. One is you can file for abridgment. What abridgment would do is the law society has the option to reduce the number of months, reduce the duration of the training that you need to take. Could be 4 months, could be 5 months. That depends on candidate to candidate. The fourth option that one candidate may have is if you are experienced, you file an application with the law society, you can get an exemption altogether. That you need not pursue an LPP course. You need not go through the 10 months articling process. You are exempted. But remember, these are two major components, the examination and the experiential training. This is only for the training component. Examinations is mandatory in all the cases. One has to write the barristers and solicitors. So after this whole process is done, then you get a call to the bar, which is your licensing process gets complete, and then you are a practice. Then you one is a barrister and solicitor in the province which one has enrolled in.
Fantastic. I'm impressed with the amount of options there that are available for people who want to be licensed, and that's very, very nice. I guess it's a very, very interesting way where people can definitely immigrate to Canada first, and then second, continue their careers. So that's just something that's very interesting. And I also wonder, I guess, as you've gone through the process, you're still undergoing it, right? If I'm correct. How have you felt, I guess, in regards to just a different legal community, right? You mentioned about how it's so interesting and important to expand your bills, to have this opportunity to litigate abroad, to get to learn how to be a lawyer elsewhere. How have you been feeling about this international reception of the legal community so far?
Well, as far as the legal community in Canada is concerned, the first thing I'd say is it's welcoming. They are warm. It's a good thing. It's a very good thing. I come from a common law, different jurisdiction, but it's a warm community. But then there are practical problems with it. Firstly, I have read it on internet, I've read it on LinkedIn, I've read it on Facebook, and even I'm personally experiencing this. Getting an articling is not an easy job because it is paid. The firms would pay you, but at the end of the day, you are a student. So the amount of value that an associate is adding to a law firm and the amount of value that a student is adding stands at a different footing. Secondly, the articling market is saturated to a great extent. Also, because students who are proactive, they get their articlings slots reserved well before in time. There is a proper timeline for it as per the LSO regulations. So there are practical issues with it because getting an articling is not an easy job. It's a tough thing. So that's the second issue with this. But then again, because it's a common law country, it gives youngsters a room to grow. So these are some of the major issues. I believe 5 years, 10 years down the law, these won't matter much. But because since we are going through that process right now, so this is our first priority at the current stage. Remember when we were in year 2 of our last law school, the biggest worry that we had was to pass the exam somehow. Let's be very honest, because we were 20, 21 years, 22 years old at that time. But now 5 years, 10 years down the line, we don't even remember. But we were anxious that night before that exam. So this is the stage that we are going through. That there are students who are actively looking for articling. I am looking for an articling position. I have a 6 years experience in Supreme Court. But then again, these are practical problems that one has to face. But this is part of the profession. Once we get our call to the bar, the problems would be changed. The first priority would be to land in the law firm, get a job. 2 3 years down the line, it would be get some good work. 10 years from then you would be thinking of joining a different firm or expanding your practice. So these are part of the professional the professional game, I would say. But Canadian legal community, all in all, it's just I have here been for like 3 months only, so it's not a lot of time that I have spent. But what I have generally observed, the legal community has been warm, has been welcoming. Even if I send an email to like senior lawyers out here, sometimes there is a mental barrier that we have in our minds that he may not even see my email. But the good thing is that people are responsive. They might say we do not have a vacancy right now, or we are not hiring right now. Or sometimes even I get replies from senior lawyers. They say that I do not have a vacancy right now, but you can come down to my office for a chat. So as a licensing candidate, I see that as a very welcoming and warm gesture. It's a good thing.
Well, that's incredible. I'm so happy about your positive impression, and I'm so happy the community is so welcoming in that part of the world. I really appreciate your time, Harpreet, to talk with us today and share with us a little bit about studying and practicing law both in India and in Canada. Thank you so much, and I hope to stay in touch.
Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Fantastic. Thanks everybody for tuning in and listening to this episode, and we'll see you in the next podcast.